everyone. I'm just wondering how many people we've got. People are still coming in. Welcome, welcome. We just so that we can keep to time. I'm gonna start, if you don't mind. So welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us during this International Coaching Week. It's one of the things about this week is celebration, but also empowerment and inspiring one another. So I trust that that's what's going to happen today during this conversation that we're going to have together. That you will be empowered, you'll learn some things, reflect on things, and hopefully go away with some actions that will help you progress towards your building your business. So I'm going to just do an introduction, and then I will pass you on to Maxine to kick off her part. So it's really great to see you, and I can see people joining in from all over the world, at various parts of the world, and I believe this is a very important kind of conversation for coaches, irrespective of where you are in your coaching journey. So throughout this week, what we've attempted to do is to explore coaching from several different perspectives. We started on Monday, experience, what does it feel like to be coached? Then we moved on to the coaching transition, a number of professionals transitioning into this profession. And then yesterday, we had a roundtable discussion on how coaching is applied inside organizations and leadership environments. And today, we want to address this overarching question. Could this realistically become part of your professional future? The conversation is really focused on something many, many coaches eventually encounter: the difference between learning coaching and building something sustainable around coaching professionally. That transition is often much more complex than people initially expect, or even think about. So not simply, this isn't about marketing or business strategy, because sustainability in coaching often touches on questions like, who are you as a coach? The identity around having a business, a solopreneur, the confidence of running your own business and approaching your marketplace, the visibility of you in that marketplace, the value you're providing, and the relationships and community, and obviously your professional positioning. So rather than today being a training session, it's about how to grow a coaching business. It really is, as I said, a conversation, a thoughtful, honest conversation. And I trust Maxine and I will bring that about, of what actually changes when coaching becomes something coaches try to sustain professionally over time. So a quick introduction about myself and Maxine. My name is Taymour Miri. For those of you who don't know me, I'm an ICF Master Certified Coach. I'm the founder of International Coaching Education, ICE. Over the past 2 decades, I've been working with organizations, primarily Europe, Middle East, and US, around leadership, strength-based coaching, and also coaching development. And much of my work at ICE focuses on really supporting coaches as they navigate this journey, and the realities that emerge around the professional, growth, the capability of being able to coach, but also starting and maintaining and sustaining a business. So I'm especially pleased to be joining for Maxine to be joining me today, Maxine Attong. Maxine is a professional certified coach. She brings a combination of executive leadership, organizational development. She has financial understanding and professional coaching experience that makes her perspective today incredibly valuable. Maxine has the qualifications of Gestalt organizational development, and she's been a former COO. She's certified management accountant and has spent over 25 years working with leaders and organizations around strategy, behavior, performance, and transformation. So we're in good hands. One of the things I especially appreciate about Maxine's work is the way she explores the often invisible relationship between professional sustainability, identity, value, and the behavioral coaches wanting to build a business, which I think is highly relevant for many coaches and professionals navigating this space today. So today, we will be much more reflective as opposed to a formal presentation. There will certainly be ideas and frameworks that Maxine and I will explore, but really the intention is to create space for you to think more honestly and realistically about what sustainability means for you, both professionally and personally. So before we begin, it'd be really helpful for Maxine and I to get a sense of who we have with us today. I've seen the registration, but I'm not quite sure how many of you who've registered actually participating today. So we'd love to know where you are currently in relation to your coaching profession. Because one of the things that is interesting to us about the conversations around sustainability is that they often look very different depending on where you are on that journey. Whether you've just exploring to become a coach, you're in training, or you've completed training, or in fact you've got a business that you want to grow. So let's start with a quick poll. If you bear with me, I will just bring that up and ask you to just answer. Here we go. Which best describes where you currently are in relation to coaching? I'm giving like a few seconds. I know some people are still coming in, and just want to give you enough time to read through and tell us where you're at. I am going to end the poll shortly and just reflect on what we're seeing, because I'm not sure if Maxine is seeing it as well, the results. Are you seeing the results?
Yes, I am.
Maxine?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, we're almost, I think, with everybody having responded. So just looking through this, it's really interesting to see the mix we have today. As I said, because sustainability often becomes relevant much earlier than people expect. Sometimes, even while someone is still exploring or in training, questions around confidence, visibility, your ideal clients, your identity, and your long-term direction are already beginning to emerge. And I think that's one of the reasons this conversation with Maxine is going to be especially valuable today, because sustainability is really rarely about business strategy alone. We often think through this. It is thinking through much deeper questions about how coaches relate to their business, and also how are you positioning yourself professionally over time. So, and I would appreciate what I appreciate about Maxine's perspective for today is that, as you heard from her extensive profile, she's coming in with a mindset of being a professional certified coach herself, having set up her own business and working with organizational leaders. She comes understanding what the financials look like when you're running your business, and her own deep experience working with how people and organizations actually sustain meaningful change. So I know that she will transfer that as she goes through today. So rather than approaching this as a traditional webinar or training session, I'd really encourage everyone just to simply kind of get in the mode of listening reflectively and notice what resonates personally as you hear from Maxine and I through today, both professionally and personally. And we will come back and link back to you to hear where you're at. And then we'll wrap up, I promise, on time today. So Maxine, perhaps we can bring up with your first important question
Sure.
to the audience.
Do you want to end the poll,
Yeah,
Taymour?
just done it.
End it, yeah.
Okay.
Are you ready for me to do it, or are you going to share the results from before?
I was just reflecting that everybody from the ranges are here, so I think that's
Okay, good.
that's sufficient.
Okay, good. So thanks, Taymour, for the introduction, and thank you all for attending today's session. So I want to set the frame for today's session, sort of like, there are no experts in the room, or everybody is an expert in the room. And so I would love for us to co-create the session. And co-creation for me means that you have some experience, whether you are considering coaching more seriously, you're currently in coach training, you completed coach training, you're already coaching professionally. Wherever you are on that journey, your experience is relevant. So really inviting you to use the chat, inviting you to put a question in the room, inviting you to put your voice in the room. Just raise your hand so we'll know and we won't interrupt each other. Don't be afraid to stop me at any point in time if I say something you don't understand or something that needs more clarification, or even something that resonates with you and you really feel that I want to say something now. I want to invite you to do that. So when I think about, and this topic is so relevant to me for two reasons. One, because the word struggle, I've been there, right? Building this coaching business and trying to decide, what am I doing? Because I have loads of skills and what do I really want to focus on? So that was a big struggle for me. It was such a struggle that sometimes I just had to stop and say, okay, you need to stop and think. And this idea of building a business is because I've spent the last year really focusing on my own money behavior. And so, what do we mean when we say struggle to build a business? And what struggle are you facing right now in terms of building a business? Also, too, what does build a business mean to you? And so we're going to explore these two things in a particular way today. And as part of the exploration, of course, we're going to have a few exercises. We're going to take one or two polls. So we really want to work with you in terms of where you're at right now so that you could walk away with some benefits, at least knowing a little bit more about what you need to do personally, not what we say it is, but what you need to do at this point in your journey to take you where you want to be. So you heard a little bit about me. So this is what we're going to be working with today. For me, building a sustainable business, a sustainable coaching business, there are four parts of it, right? So identity. Who are you when you show up as a coach, when you show up as the leader of a coaching business? What in your identity today says, I can or I cannot do this? What about your identity says, I'm afraid of doing this. I've never done this before. Because this is what we walk with everywhere we go. Who we are, we never leave at home. It enters every door with us. Second part that we're going to look at a little bit is community. A lot of coaches are solopreneurs and we need community. And that's something that I struggled with. So I definitely know it feels very scary joining a community. And I have joined many communities and left them because it doesn't feel safe. They don't all feel safe to me. So what are the benefits of joining a community, especially as a solopreneur? And then we look at our relationship with money, which is a big one for a lot of us. And that relationship with money is not about whether you're rich or you're poor. It is about what you think and your belief system around money and your belief system about how you deserve or do not deserve money and what you do with it. And then we'll turn a little bit to client generation, which is, of course, because we all need clients to walk through the door, whether it's the online door, the physical door, for us to be able to put all of the things that we learned in place. So we're going to start very simply with identity, and I'm going to put some questions in the chat. It's blank. Sorry. That's not what I want to put in the chat. I want to put some questions in the chat, and I'll write them in the chat. So the first question is, what do your friends say about you? If you could think about 3 words, so these questions, don't write them in the chat, write them on your little piece of paper because they are for your reflections. So the first questions, if I were to ask your friends, what is Lily like? What is Beatrice like? What would your friends say about you? So let's make a note of that. The second question, what role do you play in your family system? Now, your family system, wherever you identify, it could be in your larger family, it could be in your immediate family, or whatever you define as your family. There's no definition in that, right? So what role do you play in your family? So you might be protector, provider, defender, whatever it is, nurturer. What role do you play in your family? Next question. How do you describe yourself? If I were to say, Taymour, what are you like? What words would you use to describe yourself? The last 2 questions, what gives you energy? What activities, what events, what circumstances, sometimes people. So what gives you energy and what drains your energy? So the answer to these questions should start framing a little bit about you in terms of the roles that you play in your family system, what your friends say about you. That should also give you an indication of what your role is like in your wider friend group, how you see yourself, because a big part of identity is how we see ourselves. And the question is, does it align with what your friends say about you and the role that you play in your family? And so when we look at what gives us energy and what drains our energy, the question is, does it align with who you are? Because when we are coaching, this is what we're bringing to coaching. The magic that you bring to your clients is based on who you say you are, how people are affected or impacted by you and your presence, and what gives you and drains you and what gives and drains your energy. So if you're a coach, so like me, I get overwhelmed when it's like a lot of people coming to me at one time, and I'm really good on one-on-one and small groups. So I kind of know where I lie in coaching. So if I'm working with a big group of 50 people, I know I have to break them down into smaller pieces where I could really relate. So knowing who we are is really important. Knowing how people see us, because sometimes those two things are not aligned, then the question for us is, how do I bring it into alignment? And how does it impact the way that I work? So really getting an understanding of who we are and how we roll and how we prefer to work is the first thing about building our business, because when our business is not aligned to our identity, we're going to feel that fragmentation. So I'm an accountant and I've worked as an accountant for many years, but somewhere along my journey, I felt fragmented because working with my head did not connect with my heart, and I needed to stop doing accounting for that reason. So that is part of, so a lot of times we don't think about our jobs as part of our identity. And sometimes that's why we don't feel aligned with what we're doing. Whether you call it your vision, your mission, but the alignment in terms of who you are is really important. Thanks for sharing, Margarita. And we'll And so the question for you, and I'd like you to put a few of these in the chat. Why do you coach? What is it that made you say, I'm gonna sign up and learn how to coach, or I'm now building my coaching business? What exactly drove you to coaching? Whether you had a career before, whether this is your only career, what made you become a coach? You can put the answers in the chat, or anybody could put their voice into the room. That's fine too. Let's see what we have there. I love to see people find the possibility and power within. Thank you, Katie. I like seeing people figure it out, whatever they're thinking through or struggling with right now. And Gada is saying a protector and a supporter, a trusted person, an explorer, gym, and traveling. So that's answering the questions from before. Thank you, Gada. Yeah. And so for those of you who didn't put it in the chat, that's also fine. And I'm wondering, are you seeing any linkages between your identity and the reason why you coach? My understanding of myself matches that of my friends with some extra traits that they don't know that well. I coach to help people feel more alive and in connection with their body, and that brings me energy. Thank you, Margarita. Stephanie, supporting people in their growth and empowering them. So the question for everybody would be, when you think about the reason why you're coaching, and you think about how you describe yourself, how other people describe you, the role you play in your family system, do you see any linkages or do you see any fracture between those two? Anybody wants to put their voice in the room and tell us what they found? Hannah is sharing, I believe everyone has infinite potential and abilities, and it gives me pleasure to be part of the process when they discover their potential and do what they really love. And also to Nadia has shared the desire to help entrepreneurs not to feel alone in their professional journey. I've been an entrepreneur 25 years. So Nadia, what I'm hearing there is that what you're doing in your coaching business is very aligned to your experience. Yeah? Thanks for sharing that. Anybody sees where their coaching is aligned to who they believe they are or who their friends see them as? Exactly. Yes. So Nadia's, I got it right. Thanks, Nadia, for the confirmation. So for a lot of us, when we look at our identity, if there's something about us, maybe your role in your family has always been carer, nurturer, a provider of sorts, a protector of sorts. And so this idea of coaching and helping people really appeals to us because part of our identity or part of what we've been responsible for, and as Nadia shared, part of her experience is what has now extended us to coaching. And I think part of the question and debate for us today is that enough to build a sustainable coaching business? Is our desire to help people enough to build a coaching business? And so we want to shift a little bit from our identity, from the reason we coach, to look at what is our mindset. Because coaching is one of those really great professions that is not about us, but about other people. And the people who put their comments in the chat, if you notice the comments, they were all about helping people. They were all about, allowing people to shine through, for you to see beyond their mask, for them to reach their full potential, their possibilities. Really very beautiful language that really suggests that we have a service mindset. And the challenge for us sometimes is about extending that mindset, not switching it, but creating a service mindset and a business mindset. So how do we transform our service mindset into a business mindset? Or how do we add a business mindset to our service mindset? And so in terms of looking at the different elements of it, a service mindset would be I help people. And we want to extend that beyond just help to say you can help people transform their value, right? So the accountant in me would say that value transformation would answer the question, what is the return on investment when people come to coach with you? And how do you present that to people in a sentence, right? So we talk about, that's your presentation, right? Your 1-minute pitch. But really moving into a business mindset says that I could say in less than a minute what transformational value I create for others. And so there are many iterations of that, right? Before I started coaching, I used to say, I enhance the lives of other people. That transformed into being able to say right now, what I say is I help teams and leaders make the invisible visible, and I say things like that to really evoke some curiosity. So what is it that you want to say to someone that is a hook that will give you time to say, this is what I can do for you? So what is the transformational value that you're creating so that people could really be hooked into you and say, that's interesting. I think sometimes as a coach as well, one of the challenges for me was building systems because you are a good coach. You've coached a client, and there's a sort of expectation that client is going to tell all of their friends, oh, Maxine is a great coach. It doesn't happen that way. A lot of times our clients, because we give them good service, they don't want to share us with their friends and families. No, because you are their secret weapon. So why would they tell their competitors or even their peers about you? They're not going to tell them about you because they want you. You were so good to them that they don't want to share you with their friends, right? So a lot of times our referrals won't come from people who we give great service to because we have given great service to them. So yes, some of them might say, okay, they will tell somebody who's quite removed from them about you because, that jealousy factor isn't there. And we have a responsibility to ourselves to build systems that will bring people to our door. So what does that system look like? So I keep my LinkedIn profile updated. I do little videos on TikTok. Why? Because I'm saying that if somebody hears my name and they go Google me, how do I show up on Google, on a random Google search? So that is one system that I've built. The other systems, and we'll talk about this later, is in terms of the networks that you're building. Who are you connected to? How do they come in? So when someone calls you and says, hey, I'm looking for a coach, what is the process you have to walk them through to say, I'm the coach for you, to this is what it looks like, this is a contract, this is what happens at the end. So when we say build a system, we're talking from, everybody says client experience these days. We're talking about what are you building to take that client from step one right through until they've had an experience with you. So what is the system that you're building? And so that's where we have to begin as a business. So if you think about going to your favorite restaurant, there's a system, right? You reserve, you may make a reservation, or you walk in, somebody comes across to you, really lovely, they set you down, and then there's a pattern for the service. And at the end of it, you get a bill, you may tip them, and then you could spend a few minutes and then you walk out. So what is the system that you're building for your client to bring them into your wonderful restaurant of coaching, serve them a great meal, and then they leave? I think pricing is a big one for us as moving from a service mindset to a business mindset, because most of us could do coaching for free all day, right? Because we love it. And when you love something, you want to share it with as many people as possible. And then with ICF, they also say that's International Coaching Federation, which is the body I'm attached to. A lot of times they say we offer pro bono services. But we need to be able to charge strategically. Why? Because you have a rent or a mortgage, you may or may not have children, you want to take a vacation, and this is what is paying you to make that happen, right? Everything that you do requires money. This is the world we live in. I mean, I would love to be altruistic and say, yeah, just anytime, any freebies, that would be great. And realistically, we can't do it. So a lot of times we have a lot of emotions around money, and we'll talk about that later. And this is something that, as I said before, I've been working on for the year, because a lot of women, and I'll talk about women in particular because I'm one, we have a lot of guilt around money. And most of us, most people, men and women, have a lot of shame around money. So sometimes that ability to charge is not about the dollars and cents of it. It is about sometimes, am I worth it? Do you believe that you are worth $500 an hour? Or do you feel shy because nobody's going to pay me that, so I'll just charge $20 an hour. I'll ask for as little as possible. So there's a lot of emotion charged around the idea of pricing and the question of worth. We'll talk about that a little bit, right? So for a lot of us, selling our services is uncomfortable because, hey, I don't want to sell myself. This is a service I'm bringing. How do I do that? Well, think about it this way. I'll offer you this reframe. You are bringing something really valuable to the world. Your time and your effort is very valuable. So you are not charging people. You are saying, this is special, and I want to offer it to you at a special price. So we have to find the words with which we are comfortable. And that was also a challenge for me because it was sort of like, who am I? I have this strange accent. Maybe people wouldn't want to buy from me. And I really had to get comfortable saying, no, this is who I am. This is what I do well. And this is what it is worth. And so part of the challenge for us is that as a service mindset, of course, we could give our coaching one-on-one all the time. The question is it going to reward you sufficiently? Are you going to be able to take your dream vacation on it? And so that is the reason why we need to build partnerships and create an ecosystem that will bring business to us, as well as we could also be altruistic and give business out. So we want to shift from a service mindset to a business mindset. And don't worry, you're not going to lose your service orientation because part of your identity is hardwired for service. You are probably a nurturer by nature. So what you're doing is you're adding a business mindset to who you already wonderfully are. So it's not, don't be afraid. It's not going to happen. So as coaches, we tend to focus on the session. We have a group session. We have 3 clients and a one-on-one client. And the invitation is to move beyond that and expand our thinking a little bit so that we will be like that restaurant owner, building a client journey whenever people come to visit our restaurant, right? So any questions, any comments, anything that resonated with you from that presentation? And I think, Taymour, you wanted to jump in here a little bit. So I'll leave some space for you.
Yeah, thanks, Maxine. So it's interesting just listening uh, to this conversation so far. One of the things that I see a lot with coaches is that they're very comfortable with their values. They come in wanting to coach because they want to make an impact. They want to support others. They want to develop others. It has meaning for them. But I think we're now getting into some deeper questions around identity, how confident we are in terms of delivering, communicating with others, pricing. So I'm curious from the audience that are listening to this, as you're reflecting on some of these questions around sustainability and mindset. I'd love you to put in the chat. What's standing out for you personally as you're listening to Maxine, and these deeper questions around building a business and making it sustainable? What are some of the questions as you reflect on this?
So I'm seeing Nadia talking about a client journey, and Nadia, we'll get to that before the end of the presentation for sure. I have an example in there. Okay. And Margarita said it all aligns in theory if we speak in large metaphors, but it's hard to figure out how to condense what I want to offer people into simple, practical things. Yes, Nadia. So that is the word that I don't like, the word niche, right? Or niche. Yeah, NICHE. And so a lot of times it is hard to filter it out. And so it is about a little bit of trial and error. At least my journey, it was trial and error for me to really identify what brings me energy and what I don't like. So almost after every interaction, whether it's a type of client or whether it is a group, I say to myself, did I really enjoy that? And sometimes the answer is no. So sometimes people ask me for training and development, and I realize that I don't really like training and development. I don't like teaching. I like these kind of interactions where people are interacting. So it's not really teaching. I prefer facilitation than just that one-on-one, that group training stuff. So part of our niche is listening to ourselves and saying to ourselves, honestly, did I like that? And sometimes, yes, of course, it might be a money question. Okay, I need a little $5,000 extra. So yeah, I'll do it. And this is not exactly where I want to spend my time. Yeah. So Mary, feeling like my self-worth and believers are drivers of how much money I think I can charge. Yeah, that resonated. That resonates with me every day. I have mantras around that. Okay, Farida, welcome. Kate, learning how to get comfortable saying, I'm good at this. I have unique experiences, and all of that is worth paying for. Self-confidence and being able to talk about myself without apology. Thanks for sharing that, Kate. And Donovan, the conversations around pricing sound very familiar. I avoid the word price or cost and getting into the habits of talking about investment in my packages. I avoid session pricing entirely. Thank you, Donovan. Yes, the language of investment is really important. Yeah. Because that's what is the return on the investment? And investment feels better than price, right? It feels better for us as the seller of the services as well. Okay. So we're going to move on, but don't stop sharing. And so at this point in time, let's check and see where we are in our business. So this is a small check for you to see where you are right now in terms of your business. And you're going to rate it along the lines of 1 to 5. 1 means like no. 1 is no, absolutely not. And 5 is absolutely yes. 3 is, in the middle of both. So you know who you are, you know where where you are in your business. And it's about you and your business. So let's rate ourselves on a scale of 1 to 5 on each of these points. I think strategically about revenue. No, absolutely yes, or somewhere in between. Rate yourself. I track income and opportunities. I speak confidently about my value. I have a clear niche or a clear problem that I solve. I have a system for attracting clients. I see myself as a business owner. I invest in business development. So we'll just take 2 minutes and rate yourself. And when you finish rating yourself, add up your ratings. So see what's the total ratings you get in those 7 areas. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Maxine, can you just
Yeah.
elaborate on that number
Yes.
1 and 5?
So one is no, and 5 is best. Yeah. So 1 is like, no, I don't do it. And 5 is absolutely, I do it. And anywhere in between would be where your range is. So 3 would be like, yeah, sometimes yes, sometimes no. Right. So we want to check those ratings. Okay. So we'll just take about 30 more seconds, see where we are, and add up your total rating for these points. So we're ready? Yeah. So if we look at our total ratings, we just have a small scale for you. So what you could do is let's put our ratings, our totals in the chat. Once you feel comfortable, we don't know who you are. So let's see what kind of ratings exist for us in the chat. We have some coming in. 22, 3.38, 16. Yeah. So let's see where you're at. So if it is that your score is between 7 or 4 to 14, then this coaching business you have is a passion project. If you're between 15 and 24, you have an emergent business. And 25 to 35, you're definitely on the way to that sustainable CEO mindset. So if you were to look at your scores, the question obviously that we would ask our clients as coaches would be, what is the area that you've scored highest on? What does it tell you? What have you been doing and what do you keep on doing? And if we, as coaches, when we look at the scores, we would zero in on the lowest score. What is the area you scored lowest in? What does that tell you about your business? What is one action that you can do to move that score up? So those are the questions I want you to walk away with today so that you know the area that you are not quite thinking about and what is the action you're going to put in place to start moving that score up towards 5. So that's a quick check for where you are in your business and a quick check that answers the question, What else do I need to do? Of course, between answering the question is a question of how, right? And hopefully when we finish this, you'll have some ideas around how. This is a big one for us. What is your relationship with money? A lot of times our relationship with money has not been formed now. Our relationship has been formed with money since we were knee-high. A lot of times our relationship with money is not something that we thought about, it is something that we react towards. So for instance, if you were to think about yourself when you were small, maybe 5, what did your caregivers say about money? Yeah, like my mom always used to say, money doesn't grow on trees, right? Most times when I asked for something, it was like, we didn't have money for that. So what is your relationship with money, and how has that formed your current relationship with money? Have you ever thought about it? Have you ever been deliberate and intentional in saying, this is the relationship I want with money? Or are you still caught reacting as that little girl or that little boy in terms of how your parents treated you around what you asked for, how your needs were met, or how your needs were not met? So a lot of times we need to think about, how do I want to relate to this thing that passes through my hand? A lot of professionals have a sort of weird relationship with money. We make money and we spend it, right? The more money we get, the more we spend. And that's okay, because we want to have a bigger house, a better car. We want to dress in luxury brands. We want to have more luxurious experiences. But the question is, when it's tied back to your identity, what does that tell you about who you are? Do you spend money on others because you are a nurturer, a provider, a protector? Do you hoard money and say, I'm not gonna do anything until I retire? And the question is, whose voice is that? Who told you that you should hoard or that you should spend? Is that a decision that you deliberately made, or is it something that you just do in knee-jerk? And so the invitation for you, because this is a big topic, a big discussion, is for you to start doing your work around, what is my relationship with money?
Maxine, would you like me to put the poll up for this relationship?
Yeah, you could go ahead and do it, Taymour. Thanks for that. So we're gonna take a quick poll to see how we feel about money.
Can you see the results, Maxine?
Yes, I'm seeing the results.
Okay.
So we just have a few more people to answer, and then we'll lock off. We can't see who answered what, so don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just answer from your heart. It's all good. Yeah. And there's absolutely no judgment, because we're coaches, right? We hold things gently and lightly. So we hold this information like that as well. Yeah.
Would you like to share this or just
Yes, we
reflect
could definitely share it, Taymour, when you're ready to end the poll. You could end the poll and share it. Yeah. Yeah. So 50% of us, a little more than 50% of us think of that we need to earn more. Some of us think, 12% of us, there's never enough. 17% of us, my money works for me. And 17% of it, my opportunities and relationships are expanding. Yeah. And so what does that say to you when you look at that, and where are we in the world, right? And this is not about your bank account. This is not about how much investments you have. That's part of it. Because there's a part of us, for some of us, that has a scarcity mindset. And a scarcity mindset does not respect the fact that you may be making $1 million a month. A scarcity mindset does not respect the fact that your parents may be rich and wealthy, and that you're set to inherit millions, or that you're poor, or that you can't pay your rent. a scarcity mindset is really about our relationship, our innate relationship with money. So we're going to look at that just a little bit, right? So what is my relationship with money? When we think there's never enough, that word poverty, I want to change it to scarcity, right? Because poverty brings up many, many concepts that we don't have time to deal with today. So we'll deal with scarcity, right? There's never enough. That's our scarcity thinking. When we're rich, we think about I must earn more, or we want to be rich. I must earn more. And what that feels like is that if we stop working for 3 months, we know we're gonna be in trouble, right? Creditors are gonna be knocking on our door, right? And we'll probably be out on the street, or we might have to go and live with our parents, God forbid, right? I don't want to live with my parents. When we're wealthy, we're thinking, my money is working for me. We've made investments. We could live off of those investments. We have assets. Maybe we have cars that we lease, or we have buildings that we could rent out. And so that brings us money, whether or not we work. We're sort of on easy street. And that abundance concept, that opportunities, the world is expanding, and it's going to redound to me. The thing about scarcity thinking is that it doesn't respect what your bank account says. Rich people can have a scarcity mindset. Wealthy people can have a scarcity mindset, because that scarcity mindset is about your identity. It is about your relationship with money. It is about the seeds that have been planted in your mind when you were wee high. So how do we move from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset? And so I'll just put a slide up, and you could look at it and see where it is in this relationship with you and scarcity and abundance. Where are you in all of these different categories, right? So this is work. This is the gentle work. This is the self-compassionate work. This is the work that changes our lives as we move ourselves from our scarcity mindset to abundance. So if you think, and I think it was Kate who said, I price with confidence and deliver high value. So Kate has an abundance mindset around her pricing. If you think that you need to compete with other coaches, and maybe it's 52 of us on this call, but you know what? I need to be the best coach. Maybe it is that your scarcity mindset talking to you in that way. That sets us up as competing and doesn't see that there's an opportunity for collaboration, right? So like one of the things I usually say is like 0% of 100 is 0, right? But 50% of 100 is 50. If you think that to attract people to you, you have to give a discount, that could be your scarcity mindset speaking. So when you look at these here, how does it shift for you? Like one of the shifts that I had to make was about visibility, right? I was like, I don't want to be seen. I don't want to be out there. And that really was my scarcity mindset, because why do I not want to be seen? Why am I playing small? Why am I hiding? It's because I think that's also self-esteem and self-worth, right? Which is about my scarcity mindset. So we think about money as this tangible thing, but it really has many hooks into our identity, our self-esteem, our self-worth. Money is energy, and money is funny. Not funny, ha, but funny where it gets you the most. So we could take this away as one of the things we want to think about in terms of where is it that I'm operating with a scarcity mindset? Because our mindset attracts what we get in the world. So if it is that we're thinking that we're struggling, but we have all of these skills, we know all of these people, it's not luck or opportunity. It is our mindset that's saying that we do not deserve, or we do deserve. So that's something that for you to walk away with, and you to think about it for yourself. Yes, I know how to coach, but I still don't have confidence in the business world. The focus point has given me a powerful insight. OMG, I would love to hear what your insight is. If you could share it with us, that'd be really cool. Thank you so much for sharing that. So this is where we want to move to, right? I want all 52 coaches of us to have the confidence to say, I'm operating, I'm not competing with my coaches. In fact, I could collaborate with some of them. I have a great idea. Maybe in a chat room, I could say, this is what I want to do. Who wants to work with me? Because that person has a network. I have a network. What great magic we can create. I don't have enough clients. Well, how are you going to shift to, yeah, I just didn't find my client yet, but I know there are 20 clients out there for me, right? What are you creating around yourself to move to this abundance mindset? Don't need to know the market. I have to be the market. Look at you, Nadia. I love that. I like that. Thank you so much for sharing that. So we one of the things we spoke about earlier is we spoke about doing it alone, right? Because when we go to these coaching programs, we join it as an individual. I'm an individual. I decided I wanted to coach and I am going to be a coach. I didn't ask a friend to join it with me. So I take this solo journey and I come out on the other end of that journey as a coach. So I'm at the center of my coaching ecosystem. And we don't need to do it that way. For us to go to a business mindset, we need to think about who is in our world who could really help us here. And every coach needs a coach, right? I have a therapist. So I have a friend who is a coach who I'll call from time to time and say, hey, can you give me 20 minutes? Because sometimes that's all I need. I have an accountability partner. He's been a friend of mine for over 30 years. And I can tell you, having an accountability partner is not for the faint-hearted. The first time that I got on that call and said, this is what I want to do, and this is my struggle, it was a very emotional moment because most of us don't speak about money. Most of us speak about money in terms of this is a price, this is an investment cost, this is an exchange. I want to get this dress, I want to go to here and there. That's how we talk about money. And when we have an accountability partner, the conversation begins to be different because it means then that we have been very intentional. We're exposing ourselves and our vulnerability, and that could feel really, really awkward. So who's going to be your accountability partner to keep you on track with this business that you're building? Well, we know coach and supervision is necessary because we got to keep on our toes. We got to keep it good for our clients. So that's part of our business development in terms of our internal and our professional development. We could have peer coaches if you're part of ICF World. Ever so often, like when you're going for your MCC or your PCC, you'll be paired with other coaches so you can learn and see how they coach, and you can get feedback on if it is that your coaching is top notch or if it is that you need to watch one or two things. I think in terms of business, a strategic partner is really important, right? So I have a guy he has his own business, and I work with him to provide particular training elements for his business. I have other people who would say, okay, well, I want to do some group coaching with you. I have one person who, if she calls me and says, let's do a group coaching, I'm going to say yes. Some of her clients I wouldn't get, some of my clients she wouldn't get. So who can you think about and be strategic about it and approach them and say, hey, I want to do this, let's do it together. Right now, I'm developing something with somebody who's not an ICF person. She's an OD professional, and we are working on creating a program together. So there are people who you can expand as your strategic partner. It could be another coach. It could be somebody who's not a coach. And those people, it's possible for you as well. Networking groups and community, not my strength. I am still looking for a community and a home where I feel that this is where I should be, right? Sometimes a community that I want to join, their meetings don't exactly match my time frame. I go to a lot of networking events here in New York, looking to see what's happening, looking to see who I can meet. But that's part of our work, right? Because I work from home most days, and the only people who come to my home is the postman, and he's not going to hire me. So we know we need to go out there. And if we're part of a networking group, when we have strategic partners, they become referral sources for us. Our clients may not be our best referral sources. And of course, having a business mentor. Do I have one? Not really, but I do have people I can tap into if I say, this is what I want to look like. And so there's a space there. There's a part of this wheel that is not filled out because I recognize that I don't know everything. And you may have somebody else in your ecosystem who doesn't fit under these brackets, but you have a space there for them. So the question for you, of course, becomes, who do I have? Who do I not have? And of course, to move to action, how do I get those people in my life? Right. So something for you to think about. I'm not going to spend too much time there because I know we come into an end, and I really want to focus on this sustaining momentum, because working as a solopreneur is isolating. Now, if you're like me, I love isolation, but it doesn't grow my business. I love being at home. I love working online. It just is so comfortable for me. And I know that I can't do that because isolation is one, it's not really mentally healthy. It absolutely isn't. Two, we kind of speak into our own echo chamber. So like, you're the greatest, you're the best, you'll always be the greatest and the best, and we don't have any reality checks. And three, unless you're an online guru, I know I can't build my business just being online. I need to go out and meet people so people know that I'm there. Unless it is that you're spending lots of money on ads and stuff like that, which I don't. The question is, how do you bring people in? You gotta go out there and pump hands. And what I've noticed, so I moved to New York about 2 years ago. And what I've noticed in New York is that people love going to networking events. They love pumping flesh. They don't want to do online until it is they have locked into a business with you. So if it is that your business model is online and it's working for you, great. If it's not, I would recommend that you still go out there and meet people. So this is a big question, right? How do I get clients? So how do you get clients right now? And when you get clients, what do they look like? And so this is a question that I'm still answering, right? So one of the things that I did to get clients is, one, you already have a network. You went to school with, you worked with, you are friends with. If you have kids, you have parents who are there. If you're part of if you have a place that you worship, that's a place you have people. If you have a gym, if you have a swim club, wherever you are, you have people around you. And so you could think of those people as maybe they're part of your referral system because each one tell one, but do those people know what you do? All right. So I joined a gym recently, and I have a podcast, and I invited the owner of the gym to come to the podcast, and we had a session together. And the next time I went to the gym, one of the women said, "Oh, I didn't know you had a podcast. I heard that you did something with Kathy." That's on me, right? I did not tell people or who I'm around at least 3 times a week what I do. So how can I get clients from the gym if they don't know what I do? That's one. Two, if you were to Google yourself today, would you hire you? Right? So most times we hear somebody's name, we go and we Google them and we say, oh, okay, that's who she is, that's who he is. Three, we spoke about that whole networking bit about before in terms of strategic partners, having coaching pairs. Those are all areas in which you can get business. So how do you get clients? I would first suggest look at your networks, all the places that you go to, everybody who you visit. Question one, do they know what you do? Question two, how are you going to tell them what you do? Question three, when you get them in the door, what are you going to offer them? Which is what we spoke about before. And what is the experience they're going to have when they're with you? And when you're finished with them, what does that look like? So start with what you know. You are connected to many, many, many systems, and you have networks that go all over the place. Let's get strategic and document those and start telling those people, whether it's via email, WhatsApp, whether it's like saying, okay, can I put a post in the gym? All the things that you have to do. So one of the things I'm going to do at my gym is in October, I'm going to have a launch with them for a little product a book that I just completed writing. I'm going to do that with my gym. And I'm going to do that with multiple people who are in my network. So how can you get clients? How are you using your network right now? So when we talk about all the things that we've spoken about, this is really our sustainable model for our coaching practice. This is a sustainable model for our coaching business, right? Are you clear on what you want to do? That clarity doesn't happen overnight. Some people it does. I wasn't one of those people because I like doing lots of things. So how do I only want to do this? It felt very limiting to have a niche. It really did. And I understood and I understand now why it's important to have a niche. Because when somebody asks you, what do you do? We just have about 10 seconds or maybe 90 seconds maximum. Just think of a reel, right? Think of how long a TikTok reel is to get attention, no more than 90 seconds. So we got to be clear because that's what we're competing with. Most people don't have a big attention span anymore. And that's why you need to be clear about what it is you offer. So what is your reel going to say about what you offer? How are you going to be visible, whether it's online or offline, going to networking groups? How are you? And visibility is not just about being seen, but seen and known, right? So you're visible and your niche is clear. How are you reaching out to people in your network to remind them? It takes about 3 to 5 contact points for somebody to really say, oh, this is what you do. So for me, I do a newsletter every other week, just reminding people that I'm there. Sometimes they find value in it, sometimes they don't. I don't even know if they read it, but ever so often somebody sends me a note that says, yeah, what you said there was brilliant. What you said there was thought-provoking. So I know that some people are getting it and I'm consistent in my outreach. And why I'm doing that is so that if somebody thinks about, hey, I have somebody who needs X, Y, and Z, that person could say, oh, Maxine did this because she did an article on that or she did a LinkedIn post on that. So that really is why it is that I'm consistent in my outreach. I don't always see returns on it immediately. And ever so often, somebody called me about 2 weeks ago and I said, where did you get my name from? And they said, I saw a LinkedIn post. And I was like, oh, so that actually works. Yeah. And that is part of our referral network. So some of us might get speaking opportunities. That's a great way to put yourself out in front of a group of people. And you can also create that for yourself. There's an organization you know that might need somebody for a lunch and learn. They might need somebody for a conference. Those are always good opportunities. Content creation. Well, some of us don't like social media, and that's okay. And there are other ways that you could create content. So with my newsletter, that is also content creation. This that we put together today, this is content creation. If you talk in your library, that's content creation. It doesn't only mean online, but what are you creating so people could really, one, have you visible? It's clear what you do. It will be part of your outreach. It's something that will tell people that they can refer you for this. Who are you going to partner with? Because if I were to tap into anybody's network, it means that instead of 5 people, I now could tap into 10. We spoke about the price and confidence, which is about how we feel about ourselves and our worth. What are we doing to retain clients? I think that is difficult, right? That client retention, which is part of that client journey. When a client comes into you, how do you keep in touch with them? How do you retain them? How do you tell them, I'm here for you, even after the first 3 months has passed? So I have about 3 clients who come to me ever so often, and I have many who have not. But I have some who have given me bigger jobs because I did one-on-one coaching with them. And so what are we doing in terms of business offers, which is part of our sustainability model? So to wrap up, I think we should be almost there. Yeah, I need to hand back over to Taymour in a little bit. This is something that I'm working on, which kind of pulls what we spoke about, this sustainable model and what it includes. This is something that I am working on, right? And when I think about it, it's sort of like where we want to evolve our business to. And so some of the words here will not be pertinent to you because your coaching business might look different. And I want you to think about it in terms of the words that resonate with you. So I think when we start selling sessions, right? I'm a coach. I need to have 75 hours for ICF to get to ACC. I need to have over X amount to PCC. I need to have X amount for MCC. So we start focusing on that one-on-one coaching and getting our hours. But that's when we are at just in terms of we just start out, right? That's us as babies. And we started realizing, that model is not sustainable. Unless it is you're like Tony Robbins, But even he, right? Even though he might be charging $3,000 an hour for a session, even he has a business model which is not only about one-on-one coaching. Because I don't think he could afford a private jet on $3,000 an hour, right? It means you have to work every day around the clock. So the question, so for you starting out and you're realizing, wow, I have to work 40 hours a week or 60 hours a week to bring that money in to be able to pay my rent, my mortgage, my children's education. That's kind of low because we also looking at burnout, right? Other than the fact that we can't spend whole day working, we are going to burn out if we think about only selling one-on-one sessions and charging per hour for what we do. It's going to be a little bit difficult to sustain that. And so the question for us is, how do we start building a practice and a business? What it is that we're going to offer? How are we structuring this offer? What is the investment we're asking people to make in this offer? And maybe it is, instead of one-on-one coaching, we could also offer some group programs. What does that look like? How does it feel? Is it structured for us to be able to get more bang for our buck, a bigger return on investment for our time? So what does that look like? And how is that related to your niche? And I'm looking at stage 3 right now in terms of becoming a trusted expert. So I work in the space of team and leadership coaching. That's what I do. So that's what I'm looking at right now, building partnerships with other people who are not all coaches. Perfect people for me are people who are not coaches. They have their own business. So sometimes they give me clients to coach, or we build programs together that have a coaching element because that part will be mine, everything else will be shared. So, and how am I embedding myself in organizations so it's not just a one-off experience. So that means my entire customer experience model has changed and is changing, because embedded in that question would be, what am I offering? What is the journey the client is taking with me? What is the handoff in terms of what they're doing, like what they're going to experience with me? What comes after? And so stage 4 is building an ecosystem brand, which I'm not there yet. And I don't know if I want to be there. I really don't know, right? Because it takes effort. It may mean hiring admin. It may mean looking at something very different from what I have now. So there's a question that I'm toying with now. Multiple revenue streams. Sure, we want to have investments. You may have books, you could record programs and put them online, through Udemy or whatever platform you want. But it's a question that you need to ask for yourself, because everything that we do, there's a trade-off, right? So where are you comfortable? Where are you not comfortable? And if it is that this business is not paying your rent, then what do you need to change immediately, right? Because there's nothing about being a coach that doesn't mean that you should not be living a life of abundance. We are in service. We love to serve. Our identity is nurturer and carer, protector and provider. We want to see people reach their full potential. And what about yours? What about your dreams? What about your desires? What about your needs? So we want to be able to live in service and build this business, which will give us the life that we also deserve and that we also desire. So with that, I'll leave the floor open and I'll put you back on to Taymour. So thank you very much, Taymour, for the opportunity. I'm going to stop sharing.
Yeah, thanks, Maxine. Thanks everyone for participating. I guess this is a good place to pause briefly and just get a sense from the room whether anyone would value continuing this conversation further. I'm gonna put a poll up, and I know, just looking at my own journey, it was it was incremental, and it's still developing, and this is after 25 years. So I know there's a lot of information that's been shared here and a lot of ideas. The main intention today is for you to see where you're at right now, what is that one next step when you look at this picture that Maxine has highlighted? What is that next step for you? And I know that we are in a coaching business, right? So the fact that we have to become excellent at delivering coaching goes without saying, right? You could do amazing marketing. If you go in front of the client, you're not delivering quality, massive value. You're not going to be called back to do more. So there is two lines here in parallel that we're moving, is how do we become more and more better at how we're delivering and the value we're creating for our clients, which Maxine is embedding in everything she talks about today. And at the same time, you're in this ecosystem of, you have to decide who is your ideal client. You have to decide what confidence means for you. How far away are you from trusting yourself as a coach? Because the more you trust yourself as a coach, the more confident you become. So there's a journey that we all have to go both internally, and Maxine talked about mindset. Most of you sat in the emerging business in the scores that you were sharing, that Maxine's slide identifying the scoring system. You want to move towards sustainable CEO business, right? You are the CEO of your own business. So what is that next step for you? And if you're at a place where you want to be um, touching base and continuing this conversation afterwards in terms of what is your next step in terms of adding more impact from a perspective of delivering your competency, your credentials going from ACC to PCC, building that confidence to actually what are you going to do in terms of visibility and your ideal clients? What is your value proposition? What is your relationship with yourself around that identity that Maxine was talking about? So there's two parallel things, becoming really good at coaching and becoming really good at running your own business. And those are two separate mindsets. And it's really working on that together. So I leave the poll open, and I can see that the responses coming through. We're getting a range of responses here in terms of where you're at. So for many of us professionals, this reflection is actually the beginning of creating this greater clarity for ourselves. And I think um, part of our objective today was for you to really be able to reflect as what is it that you need to become more clear about now, and go and work on that. The slide that Maxine put up about sustainable model, um, which of those would you say requires your attention right now, as opposed to looking at overwhelm of I've got to go and do all of those at the same time. That is not the idea of this conversation. So one other thing I wanted to just put out there today is one of the things we've consistently seen over the years is that coaches often benefit from having space to reflect, and like today, on these deeper questions. And in order not to be on your own to do this, one of the things we've tried to do at International Coaching Education is to create an environment where coaches continue learning, they reflect, they support one another through the community initiative we've created. And one of the things as part of the International Coaching Week, we're also making available limited number of coaching conversations with members of the ICE coaching community for any one of you that feel it would be valuable to have this space to reflect more seriously on your direction, where you're going to go, and what is the next step for you. Some of you may have access to that network of getting coaching. Some of you may not. The offer here is that you are going to have a minimum number of pro bono coaching sessions with a coach from the community. And that will hopefully add more value for you in terms of deciding where you go next. Now, if that's of interest to you, I've put an email address where you can send an email to us, info@icoachingeducation.com, and we will pair you with one of the coaches in the community. It will be something like 3 to 6 pro bono sessions, depending on what that coach is offering. Okay, so it's a significant offer for the
Yeah.
ICW. If you guys want to continue working with that coach, then you negotiate between yourselves in terms of what you exchange in terms of fees, etc. So I think that's a good place to just come back, Maxine. Looking
Yeah.
back now, what do you
Yes.
think would have been most difficult if you had tried to navigate the coaching journey entirely on your own?
I think the most, well, I did, right? I did try to navigate it on my own. And I think the most the recognition of the isolation, and the recognition of why I self-isolated. I chose that. And just really around my mindset and really doing some personal examination of why I made decisions that I made and what needed to change. So that was the biggest thing for me. It's not, when that sort of clicked, then everything else clicked. So and it is because of how I self-identify. I tend to be a very internal looking person. I'm always like looking, examining, etc., which can be a fault at times. But because that's the way I'm wired, and I'm okay with being wired that way, that's what was my big jump off point. Making connections with other people and being deliberate about it is very difficult for me, and it was a game changer as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. So I'm wondering if this is a good time to ask those of you who are on the call to just put in the chat a short reflection, perhaps one word or a phrase describing what's standing out for you so far out of today. And if there are any specific questions for either myself or Maxine, we would love to use the remaining time to be able to answer that.
I think people have been putting their comments in the chat before they left. Yeah. Before they took off, some people put their comments in the chat. I think the
Great,
word I'm
thank
seeing
you.
the most is insightful.
Great.
And there's another comment.
Be bolder. I love it, Claire.
Yes, be bolder. Uniqueness has a value. Absolutely. Yeah.
Mary's going away with a lot of reflections, which is, I think, one of the things one of the outcomes we wanted to have today is for you to go and start thinking about and choosing. Um, Great, thank you, Mary.
Yeah.
Yeah, believing in yourself, absolutely.
Yeah, that helps. That definitely helps.
Lots to think on. Indeed, Kate.
Yeah.
Hannah's written, I take a great framework to start thinking about coaching as a business rather than a hobby. This is one of the most valuable sessions during ICW that I heard. Thank you, Hannah.
Mm.
Appreciate it. Helen's written, I resonated a lot with the fact that we need to network and connect. I am aware of it. It is 100% logical in her head, but somehow I constantly avoid it.
Ellen, you're just like me. That's
Yeah.
absolutely me. But now I go. You know what I did that worked? I have a friend who needs to network as well. She does her own business, so I go with her. And that has been really helpful. So we're going something on Tuesday. So she looks for events, I look for events. We have a dollar value cap. Like we go in the city is like $20 to $35. We have a cap. And so I go with her because it could be very overwhelming for me. And she's more of a person who likes to network and talk to everybody. She's a real sweetheart. So I kind of like, in her presence, it's a lot easier for me. We don't have to do it alone. Yeah.
Helen, do you want to open up your line?
Yeah, actually. So that's really good advice. But what I also realized for me is in this part, it's I usually love to go out, meet new people, but I think it's the fact that I'm just at the beginning of it. I'm chasing my ACC now,
Okay.
so it's also like hard to go out and say, "Hey, I'm a coach," because I'm not. So it's like I guess this maybe um, self-worth as sharing who I am or what I do with the fact that I'm still not that completely. Maybe with the progress of it, this changes as well. I hope.
Yeah. Well, the only comment I have for that is that are you aware that there are lots of people who have not started any journey who call themselves coaches?
Yeah.
That's all I would say. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, Helen, one of the things also to this is not just Helen. Over the last 2.5 decades, over 3,000 coaches. This is one of the things I hear, and um, I am adamant because it is just a mindset. Because it's not the truth. Because I've seen others do exactly the opposite, and I'm not talking about people who are not on a program. People like yourself that are either finishing their education or they've finished their education, they're building the hours for the ACC or PCC, and the story is, I cannot call myself a coach. And one of the things that I brought very early on in the coaching programs was within the first 3 months, you can start coaching because you have incredible value to add. The point is for you to believe it first, right? Once you believe you have value to add, it is not the certificate that actually translates to you starting your business. It's your
Yeah.
mindset. I think that's what Maxine was talking about a lot today. So
Mhm.
anytime you feel there is a story being told, have a conversation with your coach, because when they observe that and they put it in front of you, as good coaches, we realize, there's a perspective that if we change that, we can then get going, right? So I'd love to just um, invite you to change that, right? Go and work on that because you have plenty to give right now to a lot of people. You're welcome. So Lily is saying there are so many coaches on the market. They're really they're not coach, but they charge high money. I think the market's confusing. I totally agree, Lily. At the same time, um, focus on what you can control, right?
Absolutely.
What you can control is to go and demonstrate the differentiation of what you bring versus others who are not trained or cannot produce the impact that you can. And you bring your market to you and you start creating a different story in the marketplace by being really good. And just focus on your business grow just that way because you're focusing on what you're bringing as value to your clients. Um, Belen is saying, I need to think on my niche and build a system for getting clients. Got some ideas. Awesome. Thank you, Belen. Lydia is saying, awareness around the self-isolation, it rather impacted me. Good. We want to sometimes kind of put something out there that you see that you weren't seeing, and then you've got options today to draw on, right? Because you have plenty of ways of changing that now. Corina is saying upgraded mindset. Awesome. Margarita, taking with me that I do have a network. I just have to grow it consciously. Fantastic, right? We all have networks. And it's a beautiful place to start because they know you already and trust you. Who else? Svetlana is saying, great, thanks for the session. You're welcome. A number of ideas to review my way of transforming the coaching practice that brings money into business. Yeah, yeah, we deserve to have the energy of money come back to us for the energy we are giving to others. right? We deserve that. All right. I think that's pretty much the reflections coming through. I want to thank Maxine for partnering today in bringing this conversation out. We will do more of this. Thanks, Maxine. It's been insightful. I want to also thank the participants, those that were here before, those who are here now. It is Sunday. Most of you are on holiday today, and you decided to come in and look at developing further. This says a lot about you. So congratulations, and thank you for being with us today. And as I said earlier in the note, we will be putting recordings of all the events this week on our YouTube. As soon as it comes out, we'll send an email to all of you and let you know. If you want to get in touch, you know you have the email, right? info@icoachingeducation.com. Alrighty, stay safe. Have a great rest of Sunday. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Thanks,
Thanks
Maxine.
a lot.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.